How long has it been since your last confession, huh? You heathen? You sinner? Hello, this is Jackafe, and this is my repulsive review of Indika. And no, I am not referring to the cannabis plant, but the newly released video game developed by a Russian studio named Odd Meter. And let me tell you, the game is certainly fucking odd. At its core, Indika is a third-person, linear, narratively driven adventure game with some minor environmental puzzles and platform elements set in Russia at the turn of the 19th century. Indika tells a story of a young nun who sets off on a journey of self-discovery with the most unusual companion by her side, the devil himself. Now, this game is catered towards anyone that enjoys walking simulators and narratively focused games with elements of puzzle solving and platforming, or otherwise those who have nun porn in their search history. Spoiler alert! You see her tits. Of course, with most narratively driven games, the most important part is its story. The story follows the main protagonist, Indika, a nun with deeply bottled up emotional trauma that engages herself with conversations with the devil. Hey, sounds like my ex. This leads Indika to perceive sights and sounds that likely don't exist, and her unusual actions often draw attention from others, resulting in them treating her as if she's tainted. And for all we know, she might very well be. The start of the game sees Indika being exiled from her monastery and is tasked with the sole objective of, wait for it, delivering a letter to another monastery. Yeah, that's it. I'm not fucking kidding. That's the main objective that drives the whole purpose of the game. Now, at its core, Indika is a drama, and it explores themes such as religion, faith, God, and the devil, and the ambiguous boundaries between good and evil. The narrative unfolds through various camera perspectives, some even unsettling, yet always guided by a strong artistic direction, focusing on Indika's inner transformation. The game often delves into surrealistic realms, and if I could find something to compare it to, it reminded me of Dante Alighieri's narrative poem, The Divine Comedy. The narrator, which embodies the devil, constantly delves and probes into Indika's innermost thoughts and desires. Both of their exchanges form a significant part of the story as Indika navigates through different scenarios, sometimes alone, but mostly alongside another crucial character, Ilya. While the storytelling is generally great, I anticipated a much more substantial role for the devil to play in. Now, he's a reoccurring presence, but he functions more as a narrator than a tempting, malevolent figure. There was a diverse cast of eccentric characters. Many of them were memorable, though not all of them stood out in the same way. In terms of graphics, the game boasts stunning, photorealistic visuals, right? And that's pretty common for, games developed on the Unreal Engine 5. I was particularly impressed by the facial expressions of Indika, which certainly makes it more believable in the scenarios she was presented with. Now, what's even more noteworthy, of course, is that this graphical fidelity and quality was achieved by an indie company. In terms of general style, Indika immerses players in a desolate, ominous atmosphere covered with an abundance of snow, along with deserted Russian architecture that were sporadically interrupted by flickering of fire and the piercing glaze of Indika's emerald green eyes. Although that's not the only part of her I was watching at all times. From my viewpoint, the game does suffer somewhat of an over-reliance of the white and gray color scheme. While the setting, clearly invokes Russia with its abundance of snow, this high contrast could have benefited with a touch more saturation to enhance some of the visuals and actually draw the player's eyes towards important set pieces or puzzle elements. Now, there were noticeable performance issues and jagged transitions between gameplay and cinematics, which significantly detracted from my overall experience and what I thought was the overall quality of the product. It just disrupted the immersion of the game. And honestly, regardless whether it's an indie developer or not, this shouldn't be acceptable anymore. Shame! 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 In regards to the overall sound design, can be intense, and it certainly adds to this like unsettling atmosphere overall. However, the mood is frequently undercut by this whimsical retro 8-bit fucking soundtrack that completely and deliberately clashes with the visual elements of the game. Now, I understand it's meant to be some uncompromising art house game with a distinct vision, but that choice completely took me away from the experience. The voice acting was exceptionally well executed, and that's definitely crucial for a story-driven game, albeit it could have been made more authentic with actual Russian actors and their native accents. So from a gameplay perspective, Indika primarily unfolds as a linear story-driven adventure, and it does incorporate a variety of inventive puzzles throughout. One very interesting mechanic utilizes Indika's internal struggles while she prays and has conversations with the devil, and during this, it occasionally grants you the ability to literally tear the world apart, revealing previously inaccessible paths. However, despite how unique this was, this mechanic was rarely used. Only twice, in fact, throughout the fucking game. Certainly a missed opportunity that could have opened up a hell of a lot more creative puzzle solving. Now, other puzzles involved Indika manipulating large objects using diesel machines in order to build a path forward, a skill she learned apparently in her upbringing. Who would have thought? Now, what I found most odd is that there is 2D sprite elements of gameplay. Yes, you heard that correctly. When not fleeing from photorealistic monsters in the present, Indika might be daydreaming about quirky jumping puzzles from her 2D past. And the connection that the game provides between the past and present are these meaningless nun points and coins that are hidden throughout the environment that you can collect. Now, if this doesn't mean any fucking sense to you, it doesn't to me either. So, some general feedback, and I have some. In my opinion, when Indika tries to lead more towards these gaming elements over delivering just a cinematic experience, is where the game fails. It's as if the developers were forced into putting a considerable amount of effort into expanding the game beyond a walking simulator by incorporating these mechanics between story cutscenes. These segments often involve solving environmental puzzles to progress. While many of these puzzles were straightforward, some of them were absolutely confusing because it wasn't immediately clear where to go or what items were relevant. Now, the most annoying fucking aspect of the game was undoubtedly the control of the character. Given the central role of the main protagonist in both story and gameplay, the awkwardness of certain animations caused me significant frustrations, particularly during the puzzle-solving elements. Now, there were certain chase sequences that felt forced and didn't integrate well with the gameplay due to just how generally clunky the movements and animations were, especially during climbing and falling. Despite being a linear experience, there were moments where it wasn't clear where to proceed, and it just resulted in aimless wandering. Puzzles they had in there were certainly clever and witty, but they were completely detracted by the jankiness of the controls, leading to more frustrated moments than enjoyable ones. When you have a game and its basis is on platforming puzzle elements, like, you need to be sure that the character movement and the animations behind the jumping and the climbing is smooth, and it just felt rigid. And no amount of moans coming from this nun climbing would change my mind on how enjoyable this was. Moreover, the game features hidden collectibles, such as religious artifacts that allows you to light candles in front of paintings of Jesus Christ and Karl Marx. Now, although these actions yield points, the game explicitly states that they serve no purpose, that they're fucking pointless. Similarly, there's a skill tree, but it has no tangible impact beyond wasting your fucking time. It's almost like it was designed to purposely piss you off and insult your intelligence. But hey, at least you got an achievement for watching the drying scene, right? You perv. Like, it's as if the developers aim to make fun of these conventional gaming elements such as skill trees, points, and attributes, and gamification in general. But this leads me to suspect that they may have felt compelled to include these features just to make the game more playful and to make it more marketable, I guess. At least superficially. One intriguing aspect of the game, and this happens towards the end of it, is the game actually shifts to a first-person perspective. And honestly, that was the most enjoyable part of the experience for me. I really believe that exploring this concept could have been way more beneficial from third person. The uniqueness, the surreal elements, the dreamlike ambience in first person made you completely more immersed in the world. And I think that leading with this perspective from the start could have enhanced the gameplay significantly. So overall verdict, it offers a very brief linear journey, and it's certainly worth exploring if you appreciate walking simulators with some puzzle solving elements and some really good cinematic storytelling. It's an intriguing and peculiar experience. It leans heavily into presenting itself as an art house film rather than a traditional video game. For my pros, you have a fresh and intriguing concept, a brilliant artistic and cinematographic direction. Okay, we'll just let that slide. And photorealistic graphics. My overall cons: limited and disappointing gameplay, rough body animations, simple but confusing puzzles. The story ended abruptly, and the devil has very little presence in the gameplay. Indeed, it's an intriguing game. Now, I always admire indie developers who can create visually stunning games like this one with a unique story and a perspective that sets them apart. The game is relatively short. It would take you less than 1,440 Holy Mary prayers to complete. However, I do not believe it justifies the full price tag at launch. I would absolutely wait for a deep sale. I'd say it's worth considering at $10 to $15 Canadian at most. That's it, jack-offs!